Dun, 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 dun. Hello. Today we're going to use a notebook to write things down. Let's take a break from screens together. So we're going to open up our notebook, and at the top we're going to write down what we're doing today. So our goal today is to describe linear relationships. Right, and so a linear relationship is just any relationship that when we graph it, it makes a line. So I'm going to underline that word line. And to do this, right, we need some information. So the information we need, so we need to know 2 points. So if we know 2 points on a line, right, we know enough to describe that relationship. I'm going to put that parentheses there around those 2 points because we want to think of like ordered pairs, right? So an ordered pair is just an XY combination that when you graph it, it looks like a point on a line. I'm going to give you a little strategy here. So if we want to describe linear relationships, the goal we should start with is to find the slope. So I'm just going to add this little note here. So to find the slope, put a little cloud around it because clouds are pretty. So to find the slope, we need to be able to do 3 things, right? So 2 points, but 3 things. So I'm going to draw a fancy S, right? Because all these things I'm asking you to do start with S. The first one is subtract the y's. Then we're going to subtract the x's. And finally, we're going to simplify the slope. Right? So it's just a 3-step process that starts with 2 points. So let's look at an example. So example number 1, and we'll just do 2 examples. So bear with me. I'm going to slide up so I don't forget to do it later. We're going to go ahead and make a table because typically you wouldn't be given 2 points, right? You might be given 4 points, let's say. And if we give you 4 points, right, the more information, the better. But let's just see what that looks like. So 319, 7, 51, 967, and 18, and 139. So this is a linear relationship that's moving up, right? So as the x's count up, the y's count up. So this is a positive relationship. But already we have too much information, right? We need 2 points. So in this situation, I'm just going to get rid of the big numbers. You can get rid of any extra points. I have a point here and a point here, right? And so step 1 is just going to be focus on your points. So focus on 2, and we'll call them ordered pairs just to be a little bit more academically minded. So we're going to focus on 2 ordered pairs. In this instance, we're going to focus on 3, 19, and 7, and 51. Right? And so when we read lines, we read from left to right. We read from top to bottom. And so in this instance, right, this was our original point that we started with, and then we moved to 751. So this is our original point, and this is our new point. And whenever we solve for change, we typically work backwards. So in this instance, right, I'm going to start with my new point and work backwards. I'm going to do that for the y's and the x's, right? So slope is rise over run. And so the rise, dot, dot, is just going to be taking that 51 and subtracting the 19 to figure out how much we changed by. So 51 take away 19 is 32, which I know because I'm old. But 51 minus 19 tells me that from the original point to the new point, I moved up 32 spaces, right? And then how far did I move over? So what was my run value, right? So remember, I started at 3, I moved to 7, so I'm going to work backwards. 7, take away 3, And that tells me I moved 4 spaces over as I moved up 32 spaces, right? So our slope is just going to be that combination, but we want to simplify. So simplify slope, dot, dot. So I'm going to slide up. So I'm going to take my 32, I'm going to put it over 4. I could divide this, so that's something you could do on your phone, but that wouldn't tell you the fraction we need. So I remember 3rd and 4th grade really well, even though I'm old. And I remember that 4 and 32 are both multiples of 4. And so I can divide both of them by 4 to simplify them down to 8 and 1. So the thing you're going to look for, though, I would typically use Desmos for this. That's our calculator this year. Look for that button. If you do 32 divided by 4 and hit this, it's going to give you this. It might also populate just a whole number. So our slope is 8 over 1, or 8. If you know this, you're halfway to solving for the entire equation of a line, right? So this is just going to be our goal today, is just finding the slope. If we can do this, we can then shift up or down to find the equation. All right, let's do uno mas. So I'm going to turn my page. I'm going to make this one slightly harder just so you have a good example of a harder problem, but honestly, it's not that much harder. So I have an x and a y, and this time what I'm going to do, just to change it up, I'm going to put it on a horizontal table. So I'm going to start with a -8 and a 20. I'm going to give you a -5 and a 14.5 decimals gross. I'm going to give you a -1 and a 12.5. And at this point, you're probably wondering, why am I still writing numbers down? Because remember, we only need 2 points. So my instinct is to just get rid of ugly, no offense decimals. And then I'm going to keep my pretty numbers. So step 1, right? Focus on 2. And this time I'll just write it a little bit differently. X, Y pairs. Okay, so my 2 XY pairs. I'm going to stack them, -8 and 20. I like to read from top to bottom. 4 and 10. And then what I can do with this information, right, is just focus on the rise and the run. So the rise, remember we rise on the y's. So anytime you see this triangle, right, what that means is it's a change in y values, right? So in science, sometimes you'll see that, it just means change. So the change in the y's. So I'm going to start with my new and subtract my original. So 10, take away 20, that gives me -10. So what does that tell me about the line? It means that from left to right, the numbers are getting smaller, they're going down. My run values, right, it's just my change in x's, right? Triangle means change. And I'm going to do 4 minus -8. Now this is going to look ugly, right? Don't freak out. We have a calculator, so we could just take 4 minus -8 in the calculator. Or you might remember that basically 4 take away -8, taking away negative is the same thing as adding a positive. So 4 take away -8 is a positive 12. So I have a rise of -10, a run of 12, and then the last step, excuse me, my battery's low. Okay, the last step then is to just make your slope fraction. So simplify, we're going to take our -10 over 12. We're going to divide that. So again, if I don't remember how to simplify or I get stuck on that, don't stress. Look for your little button friend on Desmos. But here I know that 10 and 12 are both multiples of 2, so I'm just going to divide them both by 2 to chop it down. And what that tells me is if I drop 5 and run 6, I'll keep hitting points on the line. That is all. You're going to practice with these ideas today. Please refer back to this. You're going to have some extra space in your notebook, so you can also just kind of use some of that as scratch paper. Yeah, the tree's already dead, so go ahead and use the paper. Good luck.